Britain has been betrayed through Brexit. Whether you agree with Brexit or not, the British people voted for it. Tommy Robinson, the epitome of the British spirit, standing in the shadows in waiting, has been released at the very time that the Brexit wound has been reopened by Keir Starmer's betrayal of the democracy that they claim to endorse. Let me put it this way. In the age of reason, what you are offered is this. There is no God, so supreme authority belongs to the majority, and the majority is determined by the ballot box. Well, in a simple binary choice between shall we stay in Europe or leave Europe, the British people voted to leave Europe. That is clearly not what the establishment wanted or intended. So since then, they've been looking for ways to reverse that decision, and in Keir Starmer, they found that way. Keir Starmer has gone back to Europe and negotiated a kind of soft Brexit, where the EU still has extraordinary control over the British economy, British migration, British borders. It is a betrayal of the very democracy that the secularists and globalists claim should replace the authority of God. And yet they cannot even abide by their own principles. I don't know whether it's better to be in the EU or not be in the EU. How would I possibly know that? My sense is that sovereignty should begin with the individual, move on to the family and the community, and from there on in, there should be confederacies and alliances that are always consensual, explicit, transparent, and open. You aren't going to get that through the nation state. You're certainly not going to get it through continent-wide bureaucracies, and you will never get it with the corrupt globalist leaders that are empowered right now. Let's have a look at this story. The UK and the EU have agreed that the Brexit reset, that's what it's being called, the Brexit reset trade deal, as Sir Keir Starmer declares Britain is back, essentially back in Europe, which no one voted for. Let's have a look at the legacy media's reporting on this story. It's a reset of defence and trade ties. So again, militarism and economics are the false idols that dominate global politics.
It marks a new era in our relationship.
Britain struck a deal with the European Union on Monday that will see the most significant reset of defence and trade ties since Brexit.
Ursula von der Leyen, by any sensible analysis, is a criminal. Certainly, she was engaged in what appears to be criminal or, how do I best describe this without the use of the word allegedly? Just use the word allegedly. Allegedly, she was communicating directly with Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, during the pandemic period and doing deals for vaccines that were not going through explicit or indeed proper channels. I don't know if that amounts to criminality, but certainly she has had investigations and allegations made that compare unfavourably to the very allegations that meant that Marine Le Pen can no longer run for office in France. The EU continually intervene in European elections. She explicitly said,
"We'll see if things go in a difficult direction." I've spoken about Hungary and Poland. We have tools.
What do they mean by tools to intervene? How can you intervene in democracy? You can't, can you, without it being undemocratic?
It comes after US President Donald Trump's upending of the global order pushed the two sides to move on from their bitter divorce. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer called the agreement a win-win.
It gives us unprecedented access to the EU market, the best of any country outside of the EU or EFTA, all while sticking to the red lines in our manifesto about not rejoining the single market, the customs union, and no return to freedom of movement.
At the heart of the reset is a new defence and security pact. It will let Britain be part of any joint procurement and pave the way for British companies to take part in a $167 billion programme to rearm Europe. Britain said the deal will also cut red tape for food and agricultural producers, making food cheaper, improve energy security, and add about $12 billion to the economy by 2040. A contentious new fishing agreement was signed and a limited youth mobility scheme was outlined, while British visitors will have faster access to the EU by way of airport e-gates.
This is the story of historical and natural partners standing side by side
on the global stage.
Remember what I told you earlier about how lawyers have to tell you a story? What you're witnessing there is storytelling. Listen to what she says. This is the story of historic partners. Let's watch that again.
This is the story of historical and natural partners standing side by side on the global stage.
Historical and natural. What does she mean by natural there? Ah, man. Natural means an undeniable power in this context. That's what she means by natural. Extraordinary. And if you want to talk about nature, there's a bleeding channel around Britain. That's pretty natural.
EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen highlighted the importance of finding solutions together as allies. Relations were poisoned by years of post-Brexit arguments, but collaboration between Britain and European powers over Ukraine and Trump has rebuilt trust between the two sides. Monday's agreement was denounced by Brexit campaigner Nigel Farage, whose anti-immigration Reform Party has seen a recent rise in popularity, putting pressure on the Labour government. The deal was also criticised by the opposition Conservative Party, which oversaw the 2016 Brexit vote and spent years negotiating the original divorce deal.
A really interesting divorce, pejorative description. How do you imagine, let me know in the comments and chat, Reform's success at the ballot box will be impacted by this agreement and the reneging on ultimately the results of a referendum, and further demonstration that there is no such thing as democracy if what you mean by democracy is the will of the people represented through the ballot box and then elected officials negotiating their will. If that's what you mean by democracy, there is no democracy. What democracy is, as Mike Benz explained to us, is a set of institutions that are controlled by the powerful. Then the function of the media and the incumbent powerful becomes a masquerade. How do we make people believe there is democracy when what there is a kind of feudalism, a new technological feudalism? Here is Andrew Bridgen, who's always been outspoken when it comes to matters of democracy and has been expelled from the Conservative Party as a result of that. Keir Starmer gave away our sovereign fishing rights and made our justice system subservient to the EU in order to be able to sign a treaty giving away control of our armed forces, intelligence services, nuclear deterrent, police services and our defence industry to the EU, with the tacit consent of all other party leaders in Parliament. When their planned war comes, it will be von der Leyen who orders conscription of our young people for her army. Never was a nation more betrayed by her leaders. That's an extraordinary appraisal. Given the likelihood of global conflict in the next 5 to 10 years, whatever this event 2030 ends up being, it's likely that having power that goes beyond your national government will be useful. What you need is to be revved up and charged with super potent revolutionary coffee. This will clear your butt out quick, fast. This is a coffee that believes in revolution. If the founding fathers were here today, they'd be drinking this. Alexander Hamilton would be sipping on this stuff. Dear Thomas Jefferson, he'd be downing this. And as for Sam Adams, I reckon he'd be snorting hard lines of it. And at the moment, 1775 Coffee have got a fantastic new deal. They're giving away free starter kits, free bags of coffee, 2 16 ounces of your choice, and the Longevity brand, infused with CA-AKG, the clinically studied compound that actually helps reduce your biological age. When I started this, I was very nearly an elderly man. Now I'm one of those babies. Here I am, look at me. I've just had a couple of cups of it. Oh, I've never felt better. And the deal is simple. You pay the cost of 2 bags of coffee and $17.75 takes care of the rest. That includes the 3rd bag and the gear. This sounds like drugs. Matte black tumbler, a frother, gold scoop, reusable K-cup filter, tourniquet, works. Bang it straight into your... No, it's not. This is not drugs. Go to 1775coffee.com/brand and get your free star kit and caffeinate your soul before someone in a boardroom pulls the plug. These products won't be available forever. It won't be long before the government steps in to stop you having fun. Get them while you can. 1775, baby. Stay free. Let's have a look at what George Galloway, who's a left-wing politician, has to say. Dear Farage, you must lead a broad movement in the country against the betrayal of Brexit. many, including us, will follow. That is probably the most interesting thing to emerge. The possibility that centralized neoliberal government has become so corrupt, so disgustingly corrupt, that there exists in the United Kingdom the possibility of an alliance between what would have once been regarded as the extreme left in the form of George Galloway, who's like a trade unionist, culturally pluralist while Catholic, and people like Nigel Farage, who is a nationalist, conservative, free market economist. These kind of alliances are the only hope for the United Kingdom. But that's only politics. And politics is actually only social managerialism. Beyond that, there have to be ideals. If there is to be a nation, that nation has to have a spirit. And for that nation to have a spirit, it needs spiritual leaders. And those spiritual leaders are yet to emerge. And that is the crisis and the vortex we are falling into as the mass communication age leads not to mass union, but mass, endless bifurcation, dendrite, ever-expanding fractures and new parties. It's a kind of nihilism that's emerging in this space, and that nihilism benefits these organised institutions that span continents and even the globe. Without your participation and cooperation, which is going to mean the putting aside of your tribalism, it's going to mean the putting aside of your primal nature, the subjugation of your own nature. Those of you that sit in that chat objectifying and hating, you are going to have to transcend that, or you will become the slave that they plan for you to become. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and chat? Is there hope? If the left and right unite in the UK, will that provide the might to attack these institutions of corruption? Will they have the power, the discipline, the strength to do it? Let me know. Remember, we stream every day over here on Rumble. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's all the days there are. There's no such thing as Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Someone simply made them up. Stay free.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.